keep it moving forward, or if it ends up, transitioning to someone else. But
okay,
yeah, not sure.
Wonderful.
On that.
Well, why don't you tell us about some of the initiatives from this year?
Sure. So, when we began talking about this, we knew that Michael wouldn't be here in person. So it was kind of what are some things that we could do on the ground? I think there's still a lot of room for improvement in terms of the virtual, but some of the things that have happened here physically on Wednesday morning, myself and a couple other diversity and inclusion committee members led a discovery walk, what we called a discovery walk. And fun fact, didn't realize how big this place was. So when we had talked about it, I was like, yeah, we'll just, we'll make sure that we make it inclusive for everybody, persons with disabilities and persons without, anyone who wants to come and kind of learn where conference sessions will be taking place should come and join us. And then I got here on Monday and was like, what have I done? Because I didn't know that I was going to be able to walk people through the whole thing. But it was okay. We checked out the rooms. People were able to kind of orient themselves. We have had so far two, I don't know what day it is. We've had some on-office hours. And after this, I'm actually going back down to the Innovation Lab to hold another one. But this is a space for any conference attendee who wants to come and talk about diversity and inclusion in an informal way, can come and visit with us down in the Innovation Lab. Could be specific to the conference, so feedback on how can we make it better, but maybe just in general. Maybe you have some things you're trying to wrestle with and want to come and talk to someone. Tonight, we have an informal accessibility dinner meetup. So a colleague of ours from University of Arizona had organized just an informal, you want to come and talk about accessibility, join us. So that's happening tonight. And then also happening tonight at 9 p.m. As part of the nightly campfire gatherings is Idea Night. So that stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Advocacy. It's a $20 ticket, but it supports the OLC Women in Digital Leadership Scholarship Fund. So it's going to be, again, another place for people to come together and talk about this. So that's kind of the quick rundown of all the things.
Wow. So Kate, how did the diversity walk, did you have many people join you for that?
We did. We had, I think we started with about a dozen. And I began by kind of explaining what we were going to do. And I had a kind gentleman ask, so is this just to look at the conference space? And I said, yeah, we're just going to focus on the OLC Innovate stuff. And he said, oh, I thought this was going to be an entertainment thing, so I'm going to take off. So I did a little jazz hands to try and entice him, but he
didn't really do it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what we're all about. And one thing I did forget to mention that our committee pushed forward was pronoun stickers. So I'm wearing one. We created some pronoun stickers that have been at the registration desk. So people are able to choose the pronoun that they prefer to be called by. So that was another thing.
Yeah, I actually got one that just said, ask me about my pronouns, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Michael, did you want to talk a little bit about the virtual perspective?
Sure. Well, before I do that, let me just talk in general about the idea of having a diversity committee. So, and having diversity events. I think that most of us who care about diversity and inclusion, the end goal is that the entire conference feels both diverse and inclusive. And I'm sure that both with the virtual and the face-to-face, there's a long way to go with that. But it's more of a journey than a specific destination. But when Chris and I and Kate started discussing this, there's some inherent contradictions in having a diversity and inclusion committee, because it risks making diversity and inclusion kind of a sideline for people who are interested in that, as opposed to making it integral into the whole conference. And there's a risk of the conference saying, okay, good, well, diversity and inclusion, that's taken care of. We have a committee to take care of that. Like we have a committee to, plan the awards dinner. So it risks making it this kind of thing that is not integrated into the conference. Now, I mean, I think that, Kate and in particular, she's had to bear a lot because she's the only member of the diversity committee who actually was able to be at the conference. Unfortunately, Chris wasn't able to be there face to face. But we added another person to Jason. Is that his name?
Josh Steele and
Josh Steele,
Paloma Rafferty, also from OLC. So we have a couple others, but yeah.
I mean, the stickers is a great one where everybody can hopefully everyone will notice that, whether they felt personally drawn to put a sticker on their badge, they'll see other people with them, and perhaps it'll give them something to think about. But the goal is not a committee, the goal is diversity and inclusion. So, we thought and talked a lot about that, and it's really hard to see what we can do the first time out. And we also realized that we came into it too late, and so we have to leave some notes for next year. So one of the most important things we felt was how OLC invites people to the conference, both for submitting papers and coming to the conference. That was pretty much all cooked by the time, especially the call for papers had already gone out. And so we're hoping next year we'd like to perhaps have an expert in inclusive language or implicit bias read the proposal and see, are there ways that we're discouraging people who might want to participate from participating. I see a message in the chat from Amy.
Yeah.
Is it just for this particular conference, or is it for OLC as a whole? I mean, officially it's for the conference, but I think part of the feedback to OLC is the challenge is to make a diversity and inclusion perspective an integral part of what OLC does. I mean, Kate could talk a lot, knows much more than I do about universal design, but it's really about how do we make OLC into a group that everyone feels includes them, as opposed to, okay, let's build OLC and then figure out how to, now that we've got it done and we kind of look around and see, maybe not as diverse as we'd like. How are we going to fix that? Ideally, we would start from the beginning, and we would start with a broader group of people building what OLC is. But that being said, OLC is an existing organization. It has its history and does a lot of good stuff, and we want to participate in it and we want to support it. But we want to figure out how to make it more diverse and inclusive. So.
Yeah, and there was some, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
There were some more behind the scenes things too that our committee was asked to help out with. So the engagement committee has engagement maps. And so identifying all of the sessions that were about diversity and inclusion or universal design for learning and accessibility. So I helped out with that. Certainly when people were registering, if there were certain accommodation requests that OLC was getting that they felt maybe our committee could help with. There weren't many of those, but they knew that they could come to us for suggestions on maybe how to accommodate some of those requests. And then I also talked with some of the people who were doing helping people prepare for presenting for their sessions, and gave some guideline recommendations and suggestions on what to tell presenters. So always use a microphone. No matter the size of the room, always use a microphone. You don't know who's in the room, where, if they have hearing needs or not. Sometimes it's just a loud environment. Anyone who's out there right now in the expo hall or the vendor, it's loud in there. So anyone can benefit from that. So having some of that, making sure if you put something up on the screen and it's an image, that you describe what's up there rather than just leave it up there to float out there and just say, everybody look at this thing. So what is it, in case someone isn't able to see it? So we did offer some of those behind the scene things, but Michael's correct in saying, we were brought into it after some of the things like presentations had already been submitted. So moving forward, this committee's looking at and wants to recommend exactly what he said. So let's have someone in there from the beginning to help with thinking about how to encourage a more diverse call for proposals, that sort of thing. So those are kind of the long-term, what can we do to make it better moving forward? So, yeah. And
I wanted to say, this has been great for me because I've learned a lot. Like, Kate, could you explain the rationale for doing a tour of the space? It really, sure. I wouldn't have thought of that. And yet once you explained it, it makes so much sense.
Totally. So I've been to several of the large accessibility conferences, accessibility focused conferences, which includes CSUN, Accessing Higher Ground. And in many of those spaces, they begin with a tour, more kind of on the orientation mobility side for blind attendees or persons with low vision who are looking for kind of learning how to orient themselves to the space. Similar really for anybody. But to me, I felt like that was very important, whether or not we have individuals attending who would identify as persons with disabilities or not. Everybody benefits from it. You know, you're new to the conference and you're trying to figure out how to get around. It's a small group setting, so you can meet a few people in that tour that are also new. Or maybe you have some mobility disability, and it just helps you to have extra time to figure out, how do I get to this next room that I need to go to. So the idea was inspired by what I'd seen at some of the accessibility conferences, but definitely going to this point about universal design, which those that are familiar know that everyone benefits when you consider these things. So that was really definitely the idea behind that.
Very cool.
And I was thinking about the situation where you have somebody who may have social anxiety, and it's very important for them to know if they're in a place that's noisy or crowded, that there's a place they can escape to. So knowing the outline of the space, like if you're in the OLC floor and all of a sudden if somebody starts, you know, we're having a contest and it's really loud, somebody will feel, I need to get out of here right now. And if you don't really know the space, you're prone to panic. But if you know a path to get yourself to somewhere that's quiet quickly, you're less likely to really have a strong reaction. So there's a lot of things that we might not identify necessarily as disabilities, quote unquote, that people can benefit from having that information. So it's kind of know yourself and say, gee, would I benefit from having a tour of the space, regardless of who you are? That's available to you as an option.
Totally.
So Amy has another question, which was actually, it's really great. Amy, I think you kind of read my mind a little bit. So I was curious about accessibility issues around the virtual side of the conference. And her question is, on the virtual side, will videos have closed captions added?
I would love for that to happen.
Yeah, I
that's
think
yeah, I would love for that to happen. We have put the request out there and have called for it. So, but I'm not necessarily personally in a space to be able to say where that's going from here. Yeah,
but maybe
what that's going to look like.
Yeah,
totally.
ask the question. That would
totally.
be wonderful.
And I would encourage, you know, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee can make that as formal request in our notes after the meeting. But I would also encourage any participant who thinks that it's important, when you do the evaluation of the meeting, say, hey, I noticed I was watching the virtual and I noticed you don't have closed captions, and I would encourage you to add closed captions if you really want to be inclusive and include the broadest audience. And, you know, and again, it's a great example of universal design. There are lots of people who may not have a hearing problem, but could have other types of, for example, English might not be their first language, or have other reasons why they might find closed captions really useful. So they have to be good, though. Crappy closed captions are not. There's still machine-generated closed captions are usually not that good unless they're edited.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy. That's a great question.
That's a great suggestion question.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Just in that same vein, I don't know if you guys maybe already did it, but your idea of the discovery walk, to maybe do that in a virtual term, like to have that, and you could even record it so that people who watch it later, like, this is the virtual environment, here's how you switch between sessions, here's how you get into that environment, here's how you might be able to, here's some stuff you might need to troubleshoot. That would be really cool.
That's
too.
awesome. That's
like
a great
virtual
suggestion.
Discovery walk.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. That's a really good suggestion.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think coming at this from virtually connecting specifically, as Autumm and I do, with our experience with virtually connecting, and Chris has also been quite involved with virtually connecting. We need to get Kate more involved. A big part of the mission of virtually connecting is around inclusion, because of people who, because of health or disability issues, because of financial issues, because of family obligations, could be because of social reasons, find it very difficult to attend conferences, or maybe attend as many as they like, but would like to connect with people at the conferences and go beyond simply watching the videos, you know, which has some value, but being able to actually connect and discuss and chat with people who are at the conference, or people who presented or have good ideas. That's something that we do think that the virtual makes possible. So I do think in continuing to improve the virtual and using ideas like a virtual site walk is, you know, will be really helpful in increasing the diversity of the conference. Not that we want it to be create a have and have not, where the sort of the haves are at the conference and the have nots are elsewhere, but just that it's an option for as many people as possible.
Yeah, and I think it ultimately it just makes us better. You know, we have more voices and we can get a bigger us and we can kind of understand who we are better.
Yeah.
It ultimately just makes things better for everyone all around.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. Amy has another one in
Sure.
here. She wanted to know, are there opportunities to participate in the committee or opportunities to help out? And it sounds like it's still very new.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we might, but yeah.
Yes. I don't know what that looks like yet, but if you have even the slightest interest in being a part of this conversation, we gladly welcome that. So feel free, you can connect with me on Twitter. I'm at Kate_Sonka. So you can tweet at me that way. Happy to connect and figure out from there. And
Michael says, Amy, you've officially volunteered.
Yes, so congratulations, Amy. Yeah, so I think moving forward, like Michael said, we have some recommendations that we'll put forward, including some of these really great ones that Amy's brought up and that Autumm's brought up today. So as we do the debrief and think about what this looks like moving forward, having some more names to kind of add into that bucket of people is wonderful. So
that's really cool.
Yes.
Very exciting stuff.
Yes.
So I know we're coming up on the top of the hour, and this was going to be a shorter session because I know everybody's really busy with lots of committee work and there's a conference going on and all of that. Are there any parting words or any final statements anybody want to say to wrap things up?
I have one comment. Did I cut you off, Kate?
No, I was like, what would I mean, it's so crucial. It's so important, you know,
right?
we have to do this.
I just wanted to say that it's really important for people who don't put themselves necessarily in the diverse group, like white guys like me, to participate in the work of the Diversity Inclusion Committee. Obviously, we don't want to dominate it, but it shouldn't be the emotional and actual labor only of people who are excluded to make diversity and inclusion possible for everybody. So I really think it's all of our work together. Obviously, having diversity on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is really important. And if the entire Diversity and Inclusion Committee was in front of you now, you would see more diversity than you see right now. But it's also not just the work of those who historically have been excluded to advocate for diversity and inclusion. I think it's important for all of us. So I would encourage everybody to get involved in this work.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, that is really important, right? It's not just put the burden of figuring out this really complex, really difficult thing on the people who are most affected by it. Yeah.
Which is actually, I wish I could remember the person who tweeted this, but in going back to these pronoun stickers, you know, when people use them, sometimes it's, oh, well, the people who are using them are people who maybe aren't cisgender or who are presenting a gender that's different than what people perceive. But it's really important that all of us use pronoun stickers and all of us put that in our Twitter profiles or in our email signatures or whatever, because then it's not putting the burden on people who typically are the ones who feel like it's on them to say, no, please, this is my preference. If we're all saying this is our preference, no matter what we look like or how we present, then that's part of doing this work as a large community of people, is we're all doing that. So
I do think that's so important to recognize that gender is a sociological and psychological kind of construct, and that it's not, you know, it's not just for the cisgender people have a responsibility to do that.
They absolutely do. And I think that echoes what Michael's saying about doing this work, no matter where you're at. Especially if you're in a privileged position, that you're a part of this conversation supporting others. So,
well, I want to thank you both so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me.
Yeah, thanks, Autumm. It's been
such
great.
An important conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for making the time. And Michael, enjoy the sunshine and the warm weather.
We had rain this morning for like 5 minutes. It was
okay.
brutal.
Well, you know, Michigan has snow right now, so I don't.
It could snow.
It could snow. Totally. And thanks to Amy and everyone who was out there.
Yeah, and Amy says, thanks everyone. Looking forward to working with you. So it's
Thanks to Chris too for all his work
in the entire committee.
Helping us get
absolutely.
To this point.
Yeah.
And Joshua.
Yes. All right.
Bye now.
Everyone, bye.
All right, thanks.
We'll see you soon.